this is putting ourselves into chains. It really is. We're shackling ourselves with this woke nonsense, and it has to stop. Let's talk to the Chief Executive of the Freedom Association, Andrew Allison. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening, Kevin.
Well, you got my views on that. We're shackling ourselves. We're censoring ourselves. All these words we're not allowed to use. We can't use. Oh, you can't use mother because it's a gender word. It's a gendered word. Well, it's a pamphlet about maternity leave, giving advice for maternity leave. I would have thought the word mother is fairly central to that. Also, the Scottish National Theatre coming up to Halloween. Lots of scary productions in the pipeline. You can't use the word spooky because that evokes some kind of racial slur. This is woke madness, isn't it?
Well, it is woke madness, Kevin. I mean, words matter, language matters, the way we effectively communicate matters, and of course language evolves. But this isn't evolution. This is not the evolution of the English language. This is people telling us what we can and cannot say. And it's interesting, the National Theatre of Scotland, and I quote this from a newspaper, said that no one had complained about using the word spooky, but there were worries that they could in the future. I mean, no one has ever used the word spooky as a racial slur.
Yeah.
I defy anyone to actually know that it was even used as a racial slur in the Second World War. Now, we talk about offence archaeology, where people go digging through people's social media accounts from years gone by, but this is taking it to a whole new level. I mean, the National Theatre Scotland, because of Black Lives Matter, and that's important, the Marxist organisation that wants to destroy the nuclear family, that wants to
smash capitalism, defund the police,
it's because of all of this. They're literally trawling through the history books to try and find words that have been used as some form of slur in the past, and then impose that on us today. And of course, when it comes to the Scottish Civil Service, you mentioned in your introduction Stonewall. Now, Stonewall used to be a very successful gay rights organisation. Then, of course, they got everything that they wanted, right up to equal marriage, and they really didn't have anything else to do. They could have just packed up and said, job done, but they didn't. They got into the transgender lobby, and it's interesting that the Scottish Civil Service decided to get rid of mother in their maternity leave policy because it wanted to climb Stonewall's equality index, a very controversial equality index. And we also know that many government departments are no longer paying money to Stonewall. So I suggest that that's exactly what the Scottish Civil Service does now.
It's just crazy. Only last week we did the story of the Scottish Government's health campaign aimed at getting women to get smears. And this advertising campaign was going to go out to women, and it was changed at the last moment to be directed only to people with cervixes. Most of us call people with cervixes women, but they couldn't use that word. It subsequently transpired that actually 50% of women, of females, do not know what a cervix is. So if you say people with cervixes, they won't know that it's about them. So this is the point where this woke lunacy, where this linguistic censorship becomes more than comical, more than ridiculous, more than retrogressive. It becomes dangerous.
It does, and it could actually cost someone their life as well if they're not sure about these things. I mean, it is a biological fact, though, isn't it, Kevin? That women have cervixes and men have prostates, and it's as simple as that. It's a biological fact. But going back to the mother thing, I imagine that over 99% of women, and we'll say that, women who give birth to children identify as women. It is as simple as that. Now, there might be someone who is transitioning to become a man who gets pregnant, or quite frankly, if they want to be called he, and that's the pronouns that they wish to use, as a polite gentleman, I will use those pronouns. But they still basically are mothers. They are biological women giving birth to children.
Yeah. See, Andrew, I'll call anybody, if anybody wants to identify as a man or a woman, I'll call them whatever makes them happy. I'm a great believer in as long as you're not doing anyone any harm, live your life exactly how you want to. None of my business, and I wouldn't pass judgment on you. But what I don't like about this people with cervixes removing the word mother is I think it's sexist. I think it is the expunging of females. It is the eradication of women. That they're not allowed, we're not allowed to call women women. Well, they want to be called women. Why are we cancelling them as entities? It's wrong and it's sexist.
It is completely wrong, Kevin. I completely agree with you. And I've said to many female friends, there's going to be a time now when you're going to have to go on the barricades again to actually fight for women's rights. It's going to have to start all over again. But I've assured them that they'll certainly have me, and they'll have many men with them fighting this battle. The
thing is, Andrew, if you look back to that great women's campaign, the suffragettes, when they were campaigning in very radical ways to get the vote, they were after the vote. Now women are faced with the possibility they're going to have to campaign to be recognised for their very existence. It's extraordinary.
Yes. It is extraordinary, and that's why I keep saying there's a real battle now. I mean, for example, you can't even say in some quarters, a breastfeeding mother. You now have to say a chest-feeding person. I mean, when the hell will this madness end? People say, well, this is maybe the thin end of the wedge. It's not the thin end of the wedge, Kevin. The thin end of the wedge was years ago. We're now pretty well down that wedge. There are people there who by saying that we're trying to use inclusive, or we should be using inclusive language, it's not inclusive language, it's divisive. It's trying to catch people out. So someone who works in the civil service in Scotland, who might just use the word mother in referring to maternity leave, could then perhaps be disciplined or be told off because they happen to use the word mother. It is so divisive.
Yeah, they say to say people with cervixes or people who give birth, they say that's inclusive. It's not. It excludes women. It excludes women. It is quite the reverse of inclusive. Again, another kind of weird mangling of our language. It's the Orwellian thing. If you control the language, you control the people. But to go back to the National Theatre of Scotland, these preemptive strikes for fear of a massive rebellion of complaint. This is dangerous territory as well. So you've got some idiots at the Scottish National Theatre saying, if we're not careful, we'll get complaints about this word spooky. No, they won't. They would never have got a single complaint. And yet they have banned the word spooky. It's just insane.
Completely insane. I can't really say anything more than what you've just said there. And of course, we also know that if they got one complaint, they'd probably take that one complaint seriously, wouldn't they? Because that's what a lot of these organisations do. It's what a lot of businesses do. We can quote lots of examples. Look at Nick Buckley, who's now the chairman of Mancunian Way. He wrote about Black Lives Matter, about a handful of people, a few dozen people complained about it, and the trustees went and fired him. Now, okay, he got his job back again thanks to the Free Speech Union, but it just goes to show just a small amount of people really are trying to control the narrative here. They're trying to control the debate. They're trying to tell us what we can and what we cannot say, and it is anything but inclusive, as you've already said, Kevin, and it's extremely divisive, and it's trying to cancel in many ways women.
Yeah, and this mangling of the language, this censorship of the language is really sinister. So in another life, we had that slogan, take back control. I think we've got to take back our language. You've got to tell these woke people, no, you're not taking the word spooky away from us. You are not taking the word mother or woman away from us. We're not going to have it.
Well, I'm certainly not going to stop using those words. And I don't think that the vast majority of people, Kevin, are going to stop using those words. I think we need to look at this in some form of context, that these people do want to ban these words. They want us to become, as they call, inclusive, which, as I said, is anything but. But the vast majority of people in the country don't agree with this. They're sick and tired of it. They've had enough of it. And I do trust the good sense of the British people that they will not stop using words like this.
I don't think they will, but I think we've got to be a bit more noisy about it because...
Very much. Well, that's why I'm here talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. Always a pleasure, Alice.